Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good afternoon, Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte coming to you live from downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Your broadcast house, another edition of Cougar Sports Saturday. For the next 3 hours, we're talking BYU basketball and BYU football. Spring ball rolls on down in Provo. Loaded lineup, Noah Waterman, Fesi Sitake, quarterback Jake Retzlaff. Whole lot to get to, and oh, by the way, a game day senior night as the Cougars get a revenge chance against Oklahoma State.
Lots of BYU basketball on the deck today as next week, when you go to Kansas City, Big 12 tournament right around the corner. Wow.
Coming
so
up.
Monday, Cougar Nation, shameless plug, 6 to 7 p.m. You'll be live from Kansas City for that.
That's right. I'll be at the T-Mobile Center holding it down for Cougar Nation, taking your phone calls that night, and then the Big 12 tournament, and then NCAA tournament. It's going to be an eventful couple of weeks for Cougar Hoops, and let's start things off there with BYU basketball and the leadoff.
The leadoff. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the leadoff on Cougar Sports Saturday.
We'll get to football in a moment, but BYU basketball was right there earlier in the week for a monumental road upset against Iowa State. Things fell apart in the last 4.5 minutes. Now that you've had a few days to digest that loss, do you feel that that was a good loss, or do you feel like that was a tremendously big missed opportunity?
It was big in the sense that you had the chance to lock down a 4 seed and be in Salt Lake.
Yep.
Because if you're a 4 seed, you're going to be across the street from us in a couple of weeks, and man, you get in that building where you've won 17 of the last 18. I like BYU's odds of getting to the Sweet 16 a lot better than, say, Charlotte or Pittsburgh or Omaha in the middle of somewhere America. So I would feel a lot better being in Salt Lake. That's where the missed opportunity comes. But there's no shame in losing to the number 6 Iowa State team. But I think that we can't look at BYU through the same lens as what we thought of them in November, where it would have been nice pat on the head. Man, you competed with the number 6 team in the country. Now it's like, hey, yeah, you should hang with anyone. You're a potential, Final Four sleeper. So, yeah, we expect that. Now you got to go finish the job, and that should be a good learning opportunity to never allow that to happen again, where you give up a double-digit lead in the second half.
Yeah, I thought it was a tough loss in the sense that some of the issues that concerned me about this team related to a deep tournament run, they reappeared. And I didn't feel that way after TCU and Kansas. It's particularly Kansas, where that game was close. You got good shots. You made those shots. You found a way to get the job done. Against Iowa State, there was careless turnovers. There was questionable decision-making that led to the loss. And here's what the head coach, Mark Pope, had to say about why BYU lost Iowa State.
It's not the makes and misses. We'll live with 8 for 29. I'd like to be over 30 is really important for us. But with the 14 offensive rebounds, that's really good numbers for us. It's the 17 turnovers that got us. And down the stretch, it was the turnover.
Too many turnovers down the stretch. And look, give credit to Iowa State in that regard. They are a great defensive team. But BYU has faced this numerous times this year, Mitch, where they have a lead, a team cranks up the full court pressure, and they don't make them pay. And to me, I'm concerned again. After the Kansas game, okay, they figured some things out. I feel good about it. I'm again concerned because in the NCAA tournament, Mitch, there's going to be close games. And can you get good shots? And can you make those shots? Can you take care of the basketball? I think they'll be okay, but there is doubt in the back of my mind that in these tight situations, can they come through? Because more times than not, they've lost in those situations rather than a win like they did against Kansas.
And because of that, BYU is a team that they could win the Big 12 tournament. They could get bounced in the second round. Same with the NCAA tournament. They could be a 5-12 upset waiting to happen, or they make it to their Final Four. Like that's just, it's a wide range of outcomes with this team. And I think the floor for this team is a little bit higher than most, but I don't know on the ceiling as much as, say, an Iowa State team who might have a little bit higher ceiling, maybe, or Kansas would be that team that has a higher ceiling than a BYU, even though their floor seems lower than BYU this season. I think BYU is a really good team, and I think it's great that we're talking about, splitting hairs after a close loss to the number 6 team in the country, Iowa State, in March. And it's a testament to how good this league is and BYU rising to the occasion. But you know what? You got to finish those opportunities. But I do think there can be some value from a loss, because when it comes to advanced metrics, losing and being competitive and losing by a number far less than the projected outcome, BYU was status quo when it came to the net, the Ken Palm, all the advanced predictive ratings. So it is a good learning opportunity, but it's one of those opportunities where you could have spoiled someone's senior night. You could have given them a historic loss. That's like, oh, remember that night you lost to BYU? Like, how did you let that happen? There's just missed opportunity. But you know what? If you're going to pick when to lose a game, I'd rather lose in Ames to the number 6 team in a regular season game when you kind of know where you stand in terms of NCAA tournament and Big 12 rankings, rather than March Madness in the first round. Yeah. I'd rather have this learning opportunity there. It's also a bummer, too, because this loss takes BYU out of the running of a top 4 seed in next week's tournament. We'll get to all the seeding scenarios coming up a little bit later, but that's one of the drawbacks, too. But ultimately, if you're going to lose a game, let it be in Ames. I don't want to see it happen in March Madness.
I'll feel that way if they bounce back with a good win tonight. I want to see how they respond to that loss, because it was a little uncharacteristic from Dallin Hall, the way that he handled the ball at the end. It's not like Dallin Hall to just put the team on his back and try to make plays happen. He's shown that he can do this. It's not that he's not capable of winning games at the end, but it's usually in the flow of the offense. It's usually, hey, we're going to run a high pick and roll. He gets downhill, or they move the ball around. It gets back to him late in the clock, and then he goes to work. I didn't love the decision-making from Dallin Hall, and the turnover didn't bother me so much. It was unfortunate, but hey, you're down 1. Maybe you can catch him sleeping, get to the rim. Okay, that's fine. But what he did on the next possession, where he never passed the ball and took this deep 3 that didn't even hit the rim, that didn't feel good to me. And I hope that he bounces back in a big way tonight, because we've seen, Mitch, it's very clear. If he plays well, this team can beat anybody. Like when he played like he did against Kansas, they can go deep in the tournament. When he does not play well, because against Iowa State, only 3 assists, 3 turnovers, a 1-to-1 ratio. That's bad. That's not characteristic for what this BYU team has done all year. If he plays like that, like you said, maybe they don't win another game. So he's got to bounce back.
Dallin Hall, when he has less than 3 turnovers per game in Big 12 play, BYU 7-3 in Big 12 games. When he's got 3 or more, they're 2-5. Yep. It feels like that is kind of a barometer. I mean, it's a small little deep in the weeds stat, but it just feels like when he's taking care of the ball, BYU is darn near unbeatable, and that's a stat to me that translates to March Madness, because you're no longer in the WCC or the Mountain West where it's like, well, how good are you? Well, this is the Big 12. This is the best league in America, and you're winning 70% of your games when you take care of the rock. Dallin's got to be better with that, and I think tonight will be a great opportunity for him. And I will say, too, when it comes to Dallin Hall, he is going to be so good, and he is a rising star in the Big 12. But I think it's also fair for fans to, share their criticisms when it does happen, because we all watch the game. But then there's all these social media, hey, don't criticize. Look, who's probably criticizing him the most? It's probably Dallin Hall himself. Yeah. He's probably ticked about how that happened. There was a little combination of the Utah game, Cincinnati with that deep shot. That kind of reminded me of that Cincinnati game. Yep. But Dallin Hall is special, and he'll bounce back. Yep. He got a new haircut, so he's going to look all fresh tonight for tonight's game. I'm excited to see, how Dallin Hall finishes out the season, because to me, he is someone, Ali Khalifa, they're 2 purse players that have the potential to really become big names in the postseason. March Madness has this ability to create a platform for brands and individual stars. Dallin Hall could be a huge star if he performs well down the stretch here, and I'm excited for it, and I think he'll have a great bounce back tonight against Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, it's a payback game. That's a word we heard quite a few times earlier in the week from players, a chance to get revenge against Oklahoma State earlier in the year. Trevin Knell said that loss earlier in the season was a turning point for the team.
We lost, right, to Oklahoma State. We lost, and it hurt. It was a gut check. Everybody was upset. Everybody was mad. But I think that loss really helped us in terms of, okay, we got to get back to our roots. We got to get back to trusting each other and trusting the process. It really showed.
Yeah, that was Theo, his little puppy. Theo, who has his own Instagram. Yes, you heard that in the background? Yeah, Trevin Knell, that Oklahoma State loss, there's going to be payback. This is the first Big 12 game for BYU tonight. Tip-off tonight at 7 o'clock. Marriott Center. Get there early. It's senior night if you're going to be going to the game. I feel really confident. Like, I don't feel – maybe I shouldn't say this, but maybe the broadcaster curse or whatever, but I just think BYU is going to roll in this one. I don't feel any concern at all. I think that how they lost in Stillwater, BYU's going to come out and just jump on Oklahoma State early. I think Oklahoma State's checked out, and the way they played against Texas Tech earlier this week, I'm not expecting much from the Pokes. I think BYU jumps on them early, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, hey, I'd be all for that. I'd also be for a close game where BYU makes plays late and kind of refines their ability to execute. No?
I want margin, man. You got that margin of victory is huge in these predictive metrics. If you can thump this team by 20, and you could, that could bump up your net ranking. That could bump up your Ken Palm. You got to get those numbers inflated so you can go get that 4 seed potentially in the NCAA tournament.
Fair. All right, let's take a break, Mitch. On the other side, it is senior night, and there's a couple of seniors who will be honored, and there's one guy who's not being honored that is kind of interesting. We'll get to all of that on the other side. More BYU hoops coming your way here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Hey, we were going to talk seniors, and we still should, but at some point today, we got to talk about the comings and going of the coaching carousel in college basketball. Don't you think? We'll do it later. We'll get to it later. But there's an interesting job that opened up where Mark Pope has connections to that job. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Let's talk about it now.
Okay, let's
Washington?
do it.
You talking about the Washington?
I'm talking about the Washington job. That's
Okay.
where he started his career. He's obviously got a fondness towards the University of Washington, even though he did leave them high and dry after 2 seasons to go to Kentucky. Is Washington a threat to you at all for Coach Pope's services? After this season, you got to think Pope is on the rise again, right?
100%. I mean, I think Mark Pope's got the potential to be, honestly, a top 10 coach in college basketball. I mean, we've said that on this show in the past. I am a big Mark Pope believer. I think he is the perfect coach for BYU, and I think his style of coaching translates to, honestly, any program. The way he can mold personalities in a portal era. I mean, what he's doing with this BYU team is remarkable.
It is.
And I think that he, in that style, Bill Self even said, it's MBA at the college level. You can't tell me that a bunch of college programs wouldn't want to have Mark Pope. So I think it'd be a great thing for BYU if this guy's wanted, Mark Pope, and I think he should be because he's done a great job with this team. I just don't think that Washington job is as appealing as it would seem.
It's not.
That Big Ten stuff is great, the affiliation in there, but you're in a better league, and you've already planted yourself in the Big 12 like, hey, you're going to be a contender. Next year's BYU team is going to be better. I'm telling you, if you can maintain this group, even if you lose Jackson Robinson, who's going to be honored tonight, we'll get to that here momentarily. Next year's team, if you get Dawson Baker back healthy, he will be outstanding. Dawson Baker will be so good.
And he's like one of the 2 things this team is missing.
And then you add Colin Chandler. You bring back Marcus Adams, who's dealt with some off and on injuries, and he also went through a personal tragedy, his father passing a couple weeks ago, which was just so devastating for him, a young kid.
Yep.
You get this team back, they could be a top 3 or 4 team in the Big 12 next year with Arizona in the league. Like Texas and Oklahoma gone, so what? Who cares? They're middle-of-the-road teams. You add the Arizona Wildcats to this thing, BYU could still be in the top 4 of the league next year. That's how good BYU could be. So I think there's a lot to like, and I think that, BYU's got more money than I think people act like they do. Like, oh, BYU, like they don't have much. No, there's prominent fans and boosters that want to help the cause. I think it's just more understanding of seeing the vision. Now that you see a product that's like, wow, I want to pay for that, even though this system is so dumb where it's like, hey, fans, boosters, pay for this team. But still, I think that BYU is a better job than Washington. I don't look at that as a threat.
I only feel like, and I'm not reporting anything here, this is just my personal opinion, but we obviously know that Coach Pope has a deep fondness for Kentucky. That's where he won a national championship. That, to me, there's a big if in what I'm about to say, but that, to me, is the only place he leaves BYU for now if it becomes open. And the reason for that is BYU's affiliation with the Big 12. If it's in the WCC, he probably goes to Washington. He goes to a number of places.
Don't blame him either.
It's totally, 100%. Now, the big if here is, and we've talked about this many times, Coach Pope, I think, deserves some sort of extension, probably deserves a raise based on what he's done.
Locked into 2027 right now.
Let's make that, that's fine. But we just, Coach McDermott for Creighton just got three.
Lock him into 2030.
Yeah, that's just the name of the game. When you have great years, you get raises, you get longer extensions. I'd like to see BYU do that because I think it would send a message to college basketball that we're serious about winning at the highest level.
Yeah.
Let's not penny pinch here and he goes somewhere else because he gets a little bump to go to some opening at another power conference. That's the big if to me. Does BYU pay up if someone comes calling and match an offer? That's the situation we've all been in our workplace careers. We want to stay where we're at, but we're getting a better offer over here. Let's maybe it doesn't have to be a complete match, but can you give me something? That's the big if to me. But I don't think there's any other jobs out there that would appeal other than Kentucky. You disagree?
I mean, I think there's potential jobs in this carousel that are pretty big time that could open. Kenny Payne at Louisville right now, everyone looks at him as kind of a
lame duck,
like a dead man walking at that job. That's a position I think is a big time basketball program. I mean, they've won national championships, storied history. Backyard of Kentucky, and if you had success there, and you in Calipari State of Kentucky, I mean that could be the path if you're Mark Pope to one day get the Kentucky job. But the thing
I can't name a player that's come from there since Donovan Mitchell.
They've had they've been terrible. I mean, they're awful right now in the ACC. Kenny Payne ran.
Why would you do that to yourself when BYU is clearly an ascending brand?
Because look, I don't disagree with you. BYU. One thing about BYU that's
better
great
right now.
The thing about BYU is they don't do knee-jerk reactions. Like BYU could have. I think some people would have said you should have fired Mark Pope after last season. I totally disagreed with that. I thought this man is the perfect BYU basketball head coach. I just think there is no one better to run the BYU basketball program in the NIL transfer portal era than Mark Pope. I think he's the perfect guy for the job. He brings personality, he brings energy. I think there's so much to like about what Mark Pope does at BYU. So it's like 9 wins, 19 wins. Who cared about last year? It's like he's going to lead the Big 12. But some people were very unhappy with it, and they thought maybe move on, get a clean break at the Big 12 era. But BYU doesn't do knee-jerk reactions. They don't want to pay out buyouts. They don't want to do that. You can have job security at BYU where, other coaches in power conferences, they don't have that job security. Look what happened to BYU's rival Utah earlier this week. They lost at Oregon State. That was the type of loss for Craig Smith, who's only in his third year. I feel like it ratcheted up the heat. Like, that was a hot seat mover, losing at Oregon State where your bubble just popped. BYU, they're pretty patient. They don't go through coaches, and you can be the man. Mark Pope can become the greatest head coach in BYU basketball history. He's got that potential. He's on that arc where he's doing things that you just don't see in the history of BYU basketball ever, where he's getting them year after year, single-digit seeds. Like, you think about it. In 2020, had there been an NCAA tournament, they're what, probably a 5 seed?
Probably a 4.
Yeah, they were going to be a great seed. 2021, 6 seed. This year, probably a 5 or a 6. Those were seeds that were unheard of for BYU basketball.
Yep.
And he's making that a thing where it's like, that's just what they do.
So why would a potential Louisville appeal in this?
Because they are so hyper-focused on basketball. And at BYU, I think there's that dynamic where football will always be king and basketball will always be second. Now, if you eventually had an AD that maybe was like Tom Holmoe's pro football, like he's football first, and rightfully so. That is the biggest money
maker.
maker.
For heaven's sakes.
If you had a different AD that was maybe more pro basketball. Maybe that changes the dynamic in-house. But to me, it's always
been selling out, though. Basketball, when you're winning, this fan base grabs onto
Well,
hoops.
I get that, but I think beyond just like the support, I think that there's a lot to like about being at BYU, and I think Mark Pope has got a great job.
There's more
here.
to like than ever before.
But if I'm him, I'm still keeping my name out there and like, hey, you want to talk? Sure. Like, get me paid more. Like, he deserves it.
Yes, he does deserve it, and that's the name of the game.
If I'm his agent,
and that's why I'm saying,
I'm working the phones.
And that's why I'm saying, BYU, let's just pay up and keep this thing going.
Get it extended to 2030.
There's to me, again, coming back to this, Kentucky's the only place where if he got offered, there's nothing BYU could do.
Well, and you bring that up. I think it was 2021 Education Week. Tom Hommel even said something. I'm paraphrasing. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But he even said, like, that would be hard to beat. You being his alma mater in Kentucky. I mean, that would be hard to beat.
Because Kentucky is everything you said about Louisville, but better.
Yeah, but I just think Louisville's history is pretty big time. I mean,
yeah, so it's a B+ job
because ESPN doesn't televise it as much. Like Duke, North Carolina, like no, like Louisville's pretty legit history. Like the Doctors of Dunk, like they've had some legit dudes. But anyway, we got to take a break. We will get to some Senior Day coming up a little bit later. But one of the guys that will not be part of Senior Day, Noah Waterman. He joins us next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete and another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back in. Cougar Sports Saturday. It's a big day for BYU hoops. They play Oklahoma State tonight. Tip off at 7 p.m. It's senior night down in Provo. The guys being honored. Jackson Robinson still has some eligibility left. Traden Christensen, we have not seen him this year. And then the guy who could not return if he wanted to, Spencer Johnson. And it was interesting that Noah Waterman, who, for a while there it felt like this was going to be his last year, he's not being honored. What'd you make of that, Mitch?
I thought it was pretty noteworthy that they already feel confident they're going to get the waiver. Mark Pope. This was Mark Pope when asked if the waiver has been cleared for Waterman.
It's not final, but we have high hopes. But high hopes are just what they are.
And then afterwards, Mark Pope goes, "What was that song? High Hopes. You guys know about it?" And then me and Matt are like, "He's got high hopes." And then like everyone, all the other media is like singing this other song. I'm like, folks, you're singing the wrong song. You're confusing Mark Pope here. Wrong. It's the Frank Sinatra. He's got high hopes. Gosh, I'm like, what is the media doing? How can you not trust the media?
I know. I'm like, this dude's been driving around 4 girls for 20 years. He's listening to current pop, and they're bringing up Frank Sinatra.
High hopes. Yeah, he's listening to like TikTok stuff. His daughters know what's up. Like, I think one of his daughters is playing right now against the number 1 Oklahoma State Cowgirls in tennis right now. So good luck to her and BYU women's tennis. But yeah, that was just so funny. But Waterman's coming back, and he talked about the decision with me after practice and why he's already kind of got that mind cleared that he wants to be back for another year.
So we're working on a red shirt from one of my past schools. So the plan is that I'll come back next year. So that's why I'm not deciding to walk tomorrow.
You must feel really good, one, about the possibility of getting that waiver, but then two, you must be really liking it here at BYU.
Yeah, I really love it. Everything about BYU, the atmosphere, the fans, and the coaches. So I'd love to come back another year.
Has the waiver been formally applied for, and you expecting to get that back?
Yeah, we're expecting to get it back. We're going through some compliance stuff, but other than that, we should be good.
What have you liked the most about being part of this program?
Definitely just this year, like the team and the coaches. Obviously playing in front of the fans. Can't complain with the Rock. Best fans in the country. But other than that, I just really love the group of guys that we have, how everybody just wants to compete and win. And same with the coaching staff. Like, we all have the same mindset to shock the world, and we've been doing it this season. So.
When you got here on campus, did you? I know you signed on to a BYU program that was getting ready to go to the Big 12, but did you envision having this level of success in year one in the Big 12? Was this kind of what Pope laid out to you when you joined this program?
Oh, yeah. When I joined the program, I was really excited about the Big 12. That's one of the reasons that I came here. And I didn't know because I didn't know any of the team at first. But after last year and I saw all our work we put in the summer, I knew we were going to have a good chance of being really good in the Big 12 and just being good in the country. Yeah, it's been fun.
How helpful has it been this year just knowing everyone? Because last year there were so many moving pieces where guys joined in August, September. I think you were part of that, kind of getting in a little bit later than expected. But just having a full year to know everyone, how beneficial has that been in all the success this season?
I think that's why we're having success. Just really team bonding and going on the foreign trip together and just really connecting together on and off the court has really shown this year on the court. We have a really good group of guys, and just having the whole summer together, all of last year, and just learning chemistry and just being selfless on the court has really shown that we're one of the top teams in the country.
I want to ask you about Spencer Johnson. He's going to be going through senior night, and this is the end of the road for him in terms of his eligibility at the college level. How big of an influence has Spence been on this team's success in the locker room and, of course, on court as well?
Yeah, Spence you see him on the court. He's always doing his thing every night, getting everybody involved, scoring himself. But he's a really big leader for our team on and off the court, in practice, during the summertime, like just talking to everybody. So it's going to be tough to let him go. He's a really good guy, but I know he's got a great career ahead of him. So.
He's been the one mainstay on this starting five. There's been at times you've dealt with some illnesses in the past and some nicks and bruises, but he's been kind of that one consistent for this team every single night.
Yeah, 100%. He's super consistent. That's why I love Spence. You know, he kind of has an old man game. He's been around for a long time, so he doesn't let anybody speed him up. He just plays his game, and it really shows.
Do you feel like the game slowed down a lot for you in year two being here at BYU?
100%. Last year I didn't have a very good season. Numbers wise, and I kind of just let everything speed me up, moving up a level, you know what I mean? And this year I'm just a lot more comfortable on the court, just doing what our team needs to win, whether that's playing defense, rebound, shooting the ball. And that's why I think we're so good, because everybody on this team doesn't care about scoring 1 million points. We just care about winning. Whether that means Dylan has 6 assists, 0 points, or I have 0 points, 10 rebounds, like that's all we care about. So that's what we've been doing.
Why is that, you think? Because that's different than a lot of places, I think, in college basketball this era, the portal and NIL, where a lot of focus is maybe individual-based. What is it about this team, maybe the program, that you guys are all kind of chasing something bigger than yourselves?
I mean, we talked about it a lot in the summer. And like I was saying before, everybody just wants to win. And to have a winning team, you got to have selfless players on the team. And that's what we have. All 15 guys, even the people that don't play that are on the bench, J-Mac, Trey's been getting a lot more, but on the bench, the energy they have, Shannon defense, everything like that, getting everybody going, that just really helps the team, and that's showing that they want to win even when they're not on the court. So it really just helps us. Like every piece we have on this team is why we're winning, all 15 guys.
Here with Noah Waterman on KSL News Radio. It's been fun, too, to see you this year. Noah, I think an underrated aspect of this team is the physicality of this group. How much have you enjoyed evolving as being a guy on the glass that can get some big numbers on the glass and really be physical in this conference that's known for its physicality?
Yeah, it's been super fun. Like, this is the most physical conference and best basketball conference in the country. So everybody looks at us in the game, like whether we're playing Houston or Texas, and they look at us like, nah, like we're going to dominate the glass. But then we come out and we dominate the glass on them, and I think we really just shock the world, and that's been our motto this whole year. We're just trying to shock everybody, and I think we've been doing a good job of it.
Nearly shocked people in Ames, couldn't quite finish the job. What do you think in the future could be learned if you guys do get that big lead again to ultimately finish the job, because that's happened a few times this year.
Yeah, well, we always talked about not regretting anything on the court. So all the plays that came down to them coming back, we just got to learn from it. But we're not going to regret anything. We went out there, head down, played physical and played how we were supposed to. And sometimes it doesn't fall your way. But we gotta just come down. It really comes down to defensive end. We had a couple bad closeouts where they hit a couple threes, and we can fix that. We were there just a little late. But overall, I think we played really good as a team, and that was us. You could see it. We played really well, and we just got to move on to the next.
It feels like you guys have kind of evolved to where it's no longer, at least from the outside, people think, oh, can they do it in this venue? You guys can do it at any venue. It's now just kind of tightening up some things that maybe were your self-inflicted mistakes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And we're flourishing at the right time, We have one more home game, and then it's Big 12 tournament, and then March Madness time. So this is when you want to be playing your best basketball. And I think it helps that even though we lost this game, it's just going to help us to tweak a couple things for the Big 12 tournament and NCAA tournament. So I think this loss came at a really good time, if I'm going to be honest. So
all games are huge in the Big 12, and Oklahoma State's regular season finale, I got to imagine there's a little bit extra juice to this one considering what happened in Stillwater.
Yeah, there's a lot of juice over there. So it was fun, but let's get the next one.
Best of luck, Noah. It's been a pleasure watching you this season, and wish you and this team nothing but the best heading down the stretch run here.
I appreciate it.
All right, before we get to a break, good stuff with Noah Waterman. Nice job, Mitch. Good interview there with a guy coming back next year. And you could make a case, too, Mitch, that he's the most improved player on the team from last year. He's taken a gigantic leap from one year to another.
He's been great this year, and there's been games where 0 points and offensively, but I think he's brought on the glass, rebounding the ball, even going back all the way to that San Diego State game. That always resonated with me. 0 points, but it was 7 boards, and you thought, man, he leveled up his physicality because against the Aztecs last year, he was no match. He had to go off the court, and he's worked in the weight room, and he's done a really good job for BYU. You get him another year with Mark Pope and this staff, he's a really good player, and he could be someone that's maybe making money overseas in the future after BYU.
On the other side, if you're going to Kansas City, you're going to want to listen to this next segment as we break down some food items that I think you're going to want to try. I'm very jealous of this. Mitch is going to try every single one of them. We'll give you our favorites on the other side.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. It is the noon hour, Matt.
I'm starving.
Typically lunch.
I haven't even had lunch yet, have you?
I have not. And this segment's just going to kick our hunger into overdrive. Big 12 Eats. Hashtag Big 12 Eats. This list is quite epic. Brett Yormark, he is an additive individual. He understands younger, hipper, cooler. He knows what the younger generation wants. That is cool food items that you post on Instagram.
His slender frame, I have a hard time seeing him just chowing down on this menu.
That's actually a great point. I would love to get video of him throwing down the Big 12 dog.
Yes. All right. Text us 57500. 1, if you're going down to Kansas City. And 2, which of these menu items would interest you, whether you're going or not? Because, there's some things on here that I might want to try and replicate at home. Mitch, you want to give the list, and then we can give our top 3?
Yes, I will give you the list. And for the record, as a service to all of you that are not coming, I will try all of these on your behalf.
Yes.
There will be reviews. Here we go. And they're all named after the member institutions in the league this year. There's 15 items, 14 for each team, one for each team, all 14, and then 1 for the conference. Baylor brisket sliders, Cosmos churros.
Hold on, the brisket sliders though in a Dr. Pepper glaze.
You want to? We'll go into that. We'll go every other here.
Okay.
Baylor brisket sliders, Dr. Pepper glazed brisket, sweet slaw, brioche bun.
I'm in. That's nice.
That sounds very good. Sounds very Magnolia.
Whoever submitted this on behalf of BYU, I have a real problem with because Cosmo and churros, that's not a connection.
Why?
Because he's a donut guy. You've got the cougar tail. This should have been some donut combination, not a churro.
Hey, that might have been copyright though. You can't mess with IP. Okay?
Fair. Cosmos churros, caramel-filled churro, sweet cream drizzle, mini marshmallows, cinnamon sugar, and a toffee crumble. Inject that into. I'm a churro guy,
Yeah.
and that sounds next level.
Oh, man. You knew BYU's would be a sugary treat.
Yes.
You knew that. UCF, I'm not surprised it's a drink. I thought it would have been more on the harder side, but UCF Citronaut drink, orange soda, and vanilla ice cream. Huh?
It's not even French bean vanilla ice cream.
That's
It's
kind of
just-
tame.
Agreed. That was lame.
It's like, what?
A Cincy cheese coney, a jumbo hot dog, Cincy-style chili, onion and cheddar cheese.
So let's play on the Skyline chili deal. Yeah, you wonder if Cincinnati fans are just like, okay, we get it. We have this chili. It's like the Arch here in Utah. It's like, we understand there's an Arch in Utah. That's not near BYU. Like, no one goes to it that much. I know there's some, but like Cincinnati fans like, we don't eat that chili all the time.
If we don't eat it every day, it's not at every meal. That's good.
Shasta's Brisket Tacos. That's for Houston. Yeah, there's another Cougar in this league. That's a mascot, apparently. Shasta, I guess. He's, the name from the 25-cent sodas back in the day. Chopped beef brisket, corn and black beans, salsa, cilantro, lime, corn tortillas.
Not bad.
I can get down with that.
Iowa State has a green chili pork walking taco.
Oh, interesting.
Doritos, green chili pork, shredded lettuce, cheddar, jack cheese, sour cream.
How does that connect with Iowa State?
I don't know.
Am I missing something?
Yeah.
Are they known for their green chili in Ames? I know they're known for their bridges. I should have asked Mark Pope about that bridge. I forgot to ask that. Big J's loaded mac and cheese for Kansas. Am I saying this right? Cavatappi pasta?
That's right.
You would know because you're the Valters guy. Cavatappi pasta. Creamy cheese sauce.
It's a wonderful noodle, bitch.
House smoked pulled pork, barbecue sauce, crispy fried onions with a dash of crimson red pepper flakes. Of course, the Big 12 goes all out for Kansas,
100%.
and I'm eating that. I'm devouring
K-State,
that.
though, comes in soft with a fried PB&J sandwich.
That is just adding to the Sunflower State rivalry. You give Kansas all this, we get a fried PB&J. I swear. Wait, next year if Utah gets like this long list of food, and then BYU just gets fried churro. What?
Seriously, good point. Oklahoma Sooners, just an onion burger, nothing special.
Wait, I might have to skip that one, just out of principle. Hey, you
Yeah.
go to the SEC, I'm skipping your item.
You can't skip that Texas item though. Once we get to it,
Okay, yeah.
TCU got a Cowtown loaded tatas. I don't know why you could have just called it. Tots.
I think it's. Can we say that? Totas. Tots. Let's just say tots.
I'm like, why can't we just call
Let's
it
just say tots.
loaded tots? Yeah.
I don't want to lose my job before I get to eat all this food.
Tater tots, queso sauce, chopped brisket, corn and black bean salsa. That's nice.
Yeah. That sounds really good. OSU's Orange Power Pizza, pepperoni, sausage ham, sweet pepper bacon, mozzarella, cheddar, ranch drizzle. That just screams Mike Gundy to me. So I'm in.
I like that.
That sounds awesome.
Texas has Big Bertha loaded baked potato.
Oh, man.
Some brisket, cheddar cheese, barbecue sauce. That's nice.
And Big Bertha, remember that's the drum.
Yes.
Boom, boom. How cool would it be? You serve it,
In a drum.
like in a drum.
Yes.
And just boom, boom. The Masked Rider Burger, Texas Tech, all beef patty, cheddar, fried onion ring, sweet pickled jalapenos, Red Raiders barbecue sauce.
Lastly, the Big 12 dog. Wait, we're missing Mountaineer pepperoni pizza roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, pepperoni and mozzarella cheese pizza roll and whatever. West Virginia, Surrey.
I bet it slaps, though.
You think?
I bet it's solid.
If you can't make that work, pepperoni and mozzarella cheese, then we got a problem.
What's Big 12 dog?
Big 12 dog? A foot-long, all-beef hot dog with a lot of toppings, ketchup, mustard, red cabbage, spicy cheese sauce, sautéed orange peppers. That's next level.
I think I might be skipping that.
You said you're going to try them all for us.
I know I'm going to try it, but I might have to ask for ketchup off. I hate ketchup on a hot dog.
That is a hot take if I've ever heard one.
I despise ketchup on a hot
This
dog.
is the craziest thing you've ever said on the show.
Despise. I cannot eat a hot dog with ketchup.
Top 3 that you're looking forward to from this list.
Okay, let me get to the. We're up against it. Let's get to a break and then I'll reveal that next. Cougar Sports Saturday. We'll also get to BYU football talk coming up here in hour number 2.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Hour number 2 is off and running here on Cougar Sports Saturday. We're going to get to some of our thoughts from week 2 of BYU spring football here momentarily. Let's put a bow on hashtag Big 12 Eats. You can see the full list on KSLSports.com. The list sounds amazing. It's going to be all available at the Big 12 basketball tournament. Hopefully Cougar Nation is showing up in numbers to KC. I know it's tough. I mean, it's one of the drawbacks to being in a league that is centered in Texas and Kansas City. It's like, man, that's 1,000 miles away. That's a lot of money to get out there. It's not like Vegas where you can say, hey, let's get in the car, go down to that night game just the day of, and go make it just a quick trip. If they win, we'll stay. And that's not the case with Kansas City. But if you are going, you got to participate in Big 12 Eats. And we were discussing the list. Our 3 favorite items each. Do you want to start, Matt, or I'll start? Or,
Go ahead, Mitch.
Okay. I will go with.
Do you have them in order? Do you have your top 3? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
So my number 3, ISU green chili pork walking taco, because I'm just interested. And I need to learn the whole connection to green chili and Iowa State because I didn't really know that was a thing. I don't know if it is. Maybe it is. I do. This might be a weird take. I am curious to try the Cincinnati-style chili thing.
It's outside your top.
Yeah, so that was where I was considering at 3. That's the honorable mention. Big J's loaded mac and cheese, number 2. And then number 1, I'm going to go with Cosmos Churros.
That's a shock. The churros number 1.
I just got to go number.
I feel like they also missed like an easy layup contribution. Just get swig out there.
Oh,
for BYU. And to have like a Cosmo, maybe there's like a little maple syrup.
While we're on the topic, hey, BYU marketing, BYU concessions, just throwing it out there. You want to put that up in that concourse near the elevators in next season? Hey, let's get that endless summer.
Yes.
Let's get that halftime.
Yes.
Let's get that.
Is that your
halftime
go-to?
drink. I like the endless summer because then it just makes me feel like Big 12 football media day is almost here. Endless summer, endless hope, endless optimism. What about you? What are the top 3?
Top
Big
3
12
for
eats?
me. Cosmos Churros, nowhere to be found near my top 3.
I love churros.
I do too.
I'm stunned you don't have it there.
I would order it. It doesn't come close to number 3 for me. I'm going a taco, but not the same one. Shasta's brisket tacos.
Okay.
That looks good. Beef brisket. I love a good corn and black bean salsa. That's just right up my alley. Number 3. Number 2, to me, this one looks so good. And it might be recency bias because they just had some loaded tots recently. TCU's fried tater tots, spicy queso, some smoked brisket. Again, the corn and black bean salsa. Purple sour cream.
That does look cool. Yeah, that's a good Instagram piece.
Yep.
Like that's one you are posting if you're a TCU fan.
Yeah.
You are throwing that down on the IG stories.
That looks delicious. But number 1 to me, a clear winner. I don't even need to taste it to know it's number 1. Big J's loaded mac and cheese. That looks spectacular.
It's going to be hitting good.
And then you're hitting all the key meats, in my opinion, of a good barbecue. You got the pulled pork, you got the beef brisket, you got the smoked brisket. Gosh, that sounds delicious, man.
It'll be on KSLSports.com. You will see me doing my best Guy Fieri impression.
Yes.
Are there certain terms I need to use? Like, do I need to – I'm trying to contact one of the chefs or something or like one of the culinary experts, And then I just want to be like Guy Fieri and just say, yeah, that texture, man, that's just hitting good, man.
Texture's a good one.
Texture. I don't know what other terms to honestly use. I'm just going to say texture a lot. I'm just going to be looking at the camera and say the texture on this Big J loaded mac and cheese is just phenomenal. Man.
Temperature. Got to have a good temperature.
Okay, good temp.
If it's smooth, if something's smooth.
Needless to say, I'm not going to have a Saturday show anytime soon that's, diners, drive-ins, and Big 12 eats. Like, that's not going to be my forte anytime soon, but I'll try.
Before we move on to football, and we will, Cougar fans, we just look, how often do you just get to obsess over a specialty menu? Not very often.
Welcome to the Big 12, man. We're talking about, like SEC, Big 10 want to split. Okay. You know what? Are you doing this? Are you doing Big 12 eats? I didn't think so. Where's SEC eats, Greg Sankey?
What would you like to see the incoming Big 12 schools put on the menu for next year?
Oh, so the four corners?
Yeah. So we're talking Swoop, Ralphie, Wilbur, Sparky.
Let's see. Let's see. For Ralphie, let's go something Buffalo. Ralphie's Buffalo chicken wings?
Not bad. You don't want to just have actual, like a 12-ounce Buffalo steak, steak and mashed potatoes.
Buffalo burger?
Oh, that's not bad. But is
that's
that
BB?
offensive, though, to be calling it Ralphie's Buffalo burger?
Now, I would say old Big 12 would not be offended. But maybe now with new Pac-12 teams joining, maybe there's more offend. I don't know.
What about Wilbur, Tucson? I feel like that's got to be a drink of some kind.
Yeah, because it's so hot. You're parched. You're dying of heat, man.
It's got to have some alcohol in it too. I feel like.
Probably one that BYU will leave
Stay
there.
away from them.
It'll be like the 2021 football game at Vegas, where here Alex Carey took the picture. Here's the beer line for the BYU game.
Sparky, it's got to be hot.
Yes.
How about Sparky's ghost pepper chicken sandwich?
That's good.
Okay.
I like that. That's good. And then for Swoop, there's so many ways we could go with this. How about funeral potatoes? Swoop. And make them beer battered. I'm kidding.
Swoop's beer battered funeral potatoes.
We're
Would those
kidding.
be good or not?
I bet they'd be great. I like a good funeral
I feel
potato.
like it's got to be like a taco or a quesadilla.
Well, my thought was, for Utah, honestly, I always kind of tie them with the pie pizzeria. That's kind of one of their iconic spots.
Salt Lake City and pizza have no association nationally, though.
That's true.
It's not like we got to get to Salt Lake to get that pie, man.
But locally, that's kind of what I've always known them for. They got the pie up there.
Hot take.
They used to have Lumpies back in the day.
No, we're not contributing Lumpies to Big 12 Eats. Excuse me. That is offensive. Okay, what about this, though? What about like a... I don't know. I think you nailed it. Swoop's beer battered funeral. You can't do better than that.
Swoop's funeral potatoes or something. Or maybe you go, I don't know. Maybe the Big 12 culinary experts they'll come up with something. I don't know does Utah have a food item? I know they were kind of kicking the tires on maybe having their own version of like a cougar tail. I don't know. They were thinking about.
They
something
need to stay
concession.
far away from the cougar tail. Do something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We don't need a swoop tail that's like a chocolate donut.
The friendliness of the rivalry, which is pretty friendly
What if we
between
had like
Kalani and Witt.
Swoop's fried roasted almonds or something.
Okay, I like that. The friendliness between Witt and Kalani. If Utah had their own donut and it was swoop tail. Battleground set. It's Bronco Witt Part 2 again in the Big 12 era. I'm just kidding. We love the Big 12 Eats. I'm looking forward to it next week. Out in Kansas City, getting there on Monday. We'll have Cougar Nation live from KC. Maybe I'll eat some Big 12 Eats during Cougar Nation. BYU spring football, week 2 of practice completed this week. 5 practices down in spring for the Cougs. Yesterday, kind of surprised it was cold. They were outside, and no surprise to anyone, Kalani was rocking his shorts. That man is brave. He is strong in that cold weather. But just some thoughts from spring ball, from the observation periods you saw this week.
I feel like the defense is ahead of the offense right now. Monday was defense heavy. There was multiple interceptions. And I don't know how to feel about it, Mitch, to be honest with you. On one hand, the defense improving is really important for this team. They have to find a way to create more turnovers and create more pressure, and you love to see that. But it's bittersweet to come at the expense of the quarterback battle because the quarterback play last year wasn't good enough, and that's one of the reasons why they did not go to a bowl game. I don't think it was the most important reason. I think you could point to some defensive issues or a lack of a run game that was more problematic than quarterback play. But nevertheless, you'd love to see somebody just clear and shoulders the option for starting quarterback. And it's only been 2 weeks, so this separation could occur. But there's been a lot of throws that weren't accurate. There's obviously the turnovers. So it's been kind of a mixed bag from the quarterback position. And let's just hope for the offense's sake that that's more an indication that this defense is greatly improved rather than these quarterbacks still being too inconsistent.
And I think that could be the case with the defense. I think the defense, I believe, does have the potential to be top 4 good in the Big 12 this year. I think they could be that. And I think that this team's going to be pretty nasty defensively. It's still a lot of room to grow. It was interesting yesterday, the defensive line, Tyler Batty was held out. I think it's a case of, hey, we know what we've got in him. We're going to keep him healthy. But during the team portion, Blake Mangelson, DN, Danny Saili, John Nilsson, Zay Banya. It's not a bad D-line. No. It's pretty good. Danny Saili is interesting to me, and Kalani pointed him out, 370. But he moves pretty well for a man at 370. They got to shave some weight off a little bit. Like, it's probably not all the best the way he's coming from the JC ranks. But I asked Kalani if he's going to be a starter, and Kalani's like, yeah, he's going to play instantly. Like, there's no doubt in their mind. Already, through 5 practices, Danny Saili is going to be a force in the middle of that defensive line for BYU. The last time that happened for BYU, when they had a D tackle that just arrived and instantly became a thing that was earning praise, that was Kairos Tonga. And he's in the NFL, still making a payday in the league.
And
so
I'd love to see him and a few others emerge that can maybe push John Nelson back outside.
A guy that has been pretty good at the defensive tackle spot, who I think is going to be very underrated, is John Talmai-Painu from Snow College. He was a guy that didn't qualify last year, waited. He's now eligible, ready to go. He'll be pretty good. He'll be a name to watch, but I still think that's a position where after spring ball, I think you need to add someone if you do want to maybe get the best case 11 out on the field. But I think Nelson's an interior guy.
You like him there.
And I think that's where they see him projecting at the NFL level, where he's going to be, if he's going to get drafted and be an NFL player, it's going to be at D tackle.
Interesting. I just thought I thought he was a good pass rusher.
Yeah.
And look, they couldn't sack the quarterback last year, so.
Mangelson looks really good, and he's someone that no one talks about. I thought Mangelson was one of the most improved players last season. It gets forgotten because, well, as a team, they only had 11 sacks, and there wasn't many highlights from that group. I think Mangelson will be very good this year. Batty as well, I think, will be solid. But I think, again, with that group, they got to set the edge consistently, but they got to get to the quarterback. They got to get the sacks. They got to make it happen. Yeah. Jack Kelly's going to help those efforts. He's going to be really good for BYU. Some other guys that stood out yesterday at practice, Ephraim Asiata, he laid a bone-crushing hit on Reiner Swanson. Ephraim, it was loud. You could hear it. So just for some perspective, we're at the student-athlete building practice fields. At the very top, the north end of the practice fields, it's the field turf practice field. And Reiner Swanson catches a pass. Asiata flies in and just lays the hit. Clean hit, not helmet to helmet, and it popped, man. And it was one of those moments where you go, Ephraim Asiata has arrived. This guy's going to be another factor at outside edge. Linebacker, he could do a lot of creative things with Ephraim Asiata. You can hear my conversation I had with him on the Cougar Tracks podcast. He's going to be a good one. And you like the story, too. I mean, how remarkable is it? I mean, Matt, Ephraim Asiata had like a 1% chance to live. He was in that shooting at Hunter High School a few years ago. And now he's playing college football, and he's going to be a factor on a Big 12 team in his first year.
And then you
Pretty
factor
remarkable.
in the rivalry ties to that as well.
Oh, yeah. And I asked him, I said, is it weird that you're in blue? I mean, that's a Utah family.
Totally.
Asiata. I mean, Matt did once upon a time commit to BYU. Then he went to Snow College, and then he ended up with the Utes. But they are diehard Ute family. I went to school with Matt Asiata at Hunter High School, and I even told Ephraim, I'm like, this is weird for me. This is a first where I officially feel old just having a birthday. I'm interviewing a player who I went to school with his dad, so I'm feeling really old now. Used to be like, hey, yeah, I went to school with these players. Like, I'm the young guy I hear on the beat, but that's not the case anymore. Ephraim's going to be a good player for BYU. Another interesting tidbit with the we got to get to break. Let's get to a break, actually.
Well, yeah, let's do some more news and notes after the break.
We will do that, and then we will, coming up at the bottom of the hour, top 5. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. We have got to drop this music bed. We've got to drop this. Nate, producer Nate, we will be talking in the next segment, but no more Pokemon on this. We gotta get rid of that music bed. I don't know where that came from. Spring football. A note on the quarterbacks. The top 2 quarterbacks are still Jake Retzlaff, Gary Bohannon. Quarterbacks 3 and 4, Trayson Bourget, Cade Finnegan, they were live yesterday. No green jerseys. They were taking hits. What do you think of that move? Just say, hey, quarterbacks 3 and 4, you're taking hits.
I think it's ridiculous.
Really?
Honestly. Why? What is there to gain from that? Like, and here's my honest opinion. It should be Cade Finnegan. He has been here for years. He knows the offense well. He has looked good in moments. I would be fine with Cade Finnegan in a disaster scenario where you need to go to the third quarterback. Why is he even on the roster at this point if he's not going to be the third string quarterback?
I think it's as far as like going live, no green jersey, I think it's to try to simulate what these guys might look like in a game setting, maybe.
You can't do that. We have learned that throughout the history of BYU football, that there's guys that can turn it on in a game, and the ones that I just don't feel like there's no relevance to having them get hit in a back at the SAB than at LaVell Edwards Stadium with fans. There's no correlation. You do not become a better quarterback. The only way you become a better quarterback is taking more practice reps or playing in games. Getting hit in a practice is not going to accelerate the learning curve.
But the benefit, though, can also help the defense, where they can just go, generate a pass rush and go get the quarterback and go complete the sack.
I don't believe that.
Is that going to help?
No, because you and I both know when we're watching and there's a quarterback that's not live, when a dude is about to blow him up and just runs by him, you and I both know that's a sack, right?
Yes. But just finishing the job, wrapping up and taking that quarterback down. I think there's some value to that.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
But for the quarterback, yeah, I could argue. I mean, that's what's really the benefit there. But yeah, I think they're trying to figure out what they got in Bourget. And, Finnegan's an interesting study because you do wonder, like, what his role is moving forward for BYU. Maybe he's just a Jason Munz. That's a deep-cut throwback name. But he was once a 4-star recruit back in the day.
He transferred in
from
Wazoo, right?
No, he was a high school recruit. But he just loved being at BYU and was just kind of a career backup. Maybe that's what it is for Cade Finnegan. I don't know yet. But, he got unseated by Jake Retzlaff immediately last year. You probably think it may. I mean, the fact that him and Bourget are kind of on equal footing would make you think that Bourget is probably ahead of him too as quarterback 3. I would assume.
I kind of hope if that's the case, I kind of hope that Cade Finnegan just transfers. It's like this dude, he's barely been here and he's already jumped ahead on the depth chart than me.
Some guys like being at BYU, and I don't blame him.
For sure. Especially if you're a member of the faith. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just up in the night. I feel like there's a little something there with Cade Finnegan. Like, you don't want him to start, but I wouldn't hate it in a third-string situation.
I wish we were seeing more Ryder Burton. That's really what I'm curious to see there, if they just kind of view him more in the developmental project stage, kind of like Noah Lugo right now. The fact that he hasn't been in the top 4 at all, I thought that's kind of been a little bit noteworthy in the early part of spring. We'll talk more spring football coming up a little bit later. Top 5 next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back in. Cougar Sports Saturday, halfway through the show, and that means one thing. It's our most favorite segment of the show. We always look forward to this. Can't wait.
The Cougar Sports Saturday Top 5, sponsored by Economics Partners. Mitch and Matt clash in a weekly battle of BYU sports knowledge. Here's the Top 5.
So here's what we do in the top 5. If you're new to the show, our producer, Nate Slack, comes up with a list. Could be factual, could be preferential on his part. And we take turns guessing till someone gets 3 correct guesses and wins the top 5. But first, you don't like ketchup on hot dogs, do you, Nate?
No, I don't think a lot of people
Good man.
do.
Well, our board op does.
Yeah, your board
and
op
I
does,
do.
but-
I do prefer J-Dog sauce over all of it.
Okay.
Matt, you've been on the record multiple times about how much you despise hot dogs.
Yeah, I don't like hot dogs. You're absolutely right. So I don't even know why I'm arguing this. But if I was starving and had to eat one, I would reach for the ketchup.
Wait, so you, whenever you go to Sam's Club or Costco, you're not
Never
caving?
Never. In fact, it's disgusting. My wife will sometimes order it, and I see. Look. Anytime I see a dog pulled out of boiling water, I'm instantly out. I think I've mentioned that before.
Yes.
I'm 100% out. No soaking dogs placed in a bun for me.
It's not a dog. You don't really know what it is.
The Costco dog or the Sam's Club dog
That's
is
part
just
of the problem.
It's like that old TikTok sound. It's like a reward. Like that just you got to get that at the end of the store run.
I'm actually boycotting Costco's food in general because they got rid of the churro.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
You didn't know that?
I
The
did
churro
not.
was gone.
I
was
would get the
that was
hot
a
dog.
go-to. A slice of pizza and sometimes a churro.
Yeah, the za is pretty
You go
good.
for the dog? What's the za?
pizza.
Oh yeah,
I just love calling it za.
Is that a thing?
Slice
The
of
za?
za.
Have you heard of that before?
No, but I might start using it.
Let's get some za, brah.
Top 5 za right now. No, okay. Well, we're taking away from your time, Nate. What's the topic this week for the top 5?
Well, today we're 30 days away from watching BYU cut down the Nets as national champion.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Okay, maybe not, but the national championship is 30 days away.
Okay.
And with that number in mind, 30, we'll be taking a look back at the 5 most recent BYU players that have scored 30 points or more in a game.
All right.
So that's the top 5
I
today.
like that.
And Matt's going to be starting out.
Wow. 30 points or more in a game. Do we have to name the opponent like when it happened or just the player?
No, just a player.
All right, let's go with Elijah Bryant.
Elijah Bryant, number 4 on the list, came against Portland, his most recent game over 30, and that was on February 23rd. He went for 39, 10 of 17 shooting, 7 of 12 from 3, 12 for 12 from the free throw line.
My memory of Elijah Bryant is just an ISO guy that could get you a bucket. And that's honestly something that this current team could really use. And I think that's a Dawson Baker skill set that we'll see next year. Just when things are breaking down at the end of a game against Iowa State down 1, do you have a guy that you can just, is going to get a look? Whether it goes in, that's just a game of basketball. But sometimes I wish this team had an ISO guy that you could just dump it down to.
And not only was he an ISO guy, he was a 50-40-90 guy.
Right.
Like, he was so efficient when he put up shots. It was pretty incredible, and that's why he had chances to play at the highest stages of basketball in the NBA, in the EuroLeague.
Yep.
He's a champion too.
Mitch, you're up.
Let's go, Tyler Haws.
Tyler Haws, number 7 on the list, and that came against Ole Miss in that NCAA tournament game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, number 7. So there's 6 more recent than him.
Let's go with Alex Barcelo.
Pepperdine.
Yep, Pepperdine. February 12th, 2022, 33 points. On the note of Pepperdine, we got to address this real quick. Just the Pepperdine Pacific game a couple days ago. That was nuts.
What happened?
It was 58-9 at halftime.
The game started out like 26-0. Pacific.
Pepperdine had 9 points.
And it just
Pacific.
And then
Pacific did.
our good friend Greg Wrubell had an epic tweet or post. Pacific couldn't throw it in the ocean.
Oh, boy. With a colon and then some more commentary.
It was a good tweet. It was just
Ocean Tales, colon, Pacific.
It was very good from Greg. I liked it.
So good. But yes, Alex Barcelo, 33 points. He was 9 of 10 from 3 against Pepperdine that day.
Yeah, and Pepperdine's social media team was on fire on X. They had this great tweet where it said, the ESPN Plus 30 for 30 library. I don't even. It was just that's all they wrote because they were so bored with the game. It was just so funny. It was
They were like, "Is this what Gonzaga feels like every night?"
And I just thought to myself, man, I just really miss that Orleans arena. Not. No. I can't wait for T-Mobile Center, baby.
All right,
Let's
Matt,
go.
You're up.
I'm up again?
Yeah.
Jeez. I
For
got
the sweep.
Jeez, there's tremendous pressure on me all of a sudden. Let's go with Yoli Childs.
Yep. He got it. That jeez. That was a beatdown. That was ugly.
It's hard when you miss your first.
Yep.
It just it opens the door.
Yep. The
Yoli
one that got
Child.
away.
Yeah. You said Yoli, right?
Yeah.
That was also against Pepperdine. So 38 points, 17 of 27 from the field.
But what's the order of those 3 that I have? I had number 4. Where was
Yoli's number 2.
Yoli's number 2?
And then Alex Barcelo, number 1. So
Number
there's
1.
Number 3, number 5 last.
Okay, let's try to figure those out. So Matt already won. The rest of the list. TJ Haas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And number 3 against San Diego.
Okay,
Okay.
was that the alley-oop game?
Yeah,
Where he
that was.
alley-ooped to Yoli?
Yep.
Yeah, he had that's kind of one of the epic wins of the Mark Pope era. You just don't give it much hype
it's San Diego.
The Toreros, but you don't win that game, you're probably falling out of the NCAA tournament in that 2020 season. And that ended on a lob. It was like, whoa, BYU's Lob City.
Seriously.
The Lob City.
So number 5 is what's left. The
Yeah.
guy who the furthest away, the 5th
Yeah,
most recent 30-point game.
Uh-huh.
Nick Emery.
Oh, that's what I thought too.
He doesn't count.
Vacated.
Vacated.
Nate's a
He did have
stickler.
37 against San Francisco, but yeah, he's not.
Would
on the
that have
list.
been?
I believe so. It's the same season as this guy. It was
That-
2017.
That was a freshman record, too, I think.
Yeah.
That even passed Danny Ainge when Emery dropped that 37 piece. Chase Fisher. Oh, no, that was
Good
too
guess.
far back.
He's number 6.
That was in Maui, right?
Yeah, against Chaminade. He had 9 threes.
Eric Mika.
Yeah.
Eric Mika, yeah, 31 against San Francisco.
Oh, dang. So, wait, was that the same game?
Pretty sure it was the same game. Yeah, January 12th, 2017. I don't know how
Emery and Mika both
it might
popped
be
for 30.
It might be at home against San
Okay.
Francisco. So different games, but
Okay,
same
same
season.
opponent, different games.
Interesting.
Because Emery's was on the road,
Yeah.
on the hill.
You know, that's a pretty cool list because I would be curious to see how many programs can say they've had, 5 different dudes in less than a decade go off for 30-point games. BYU's been pretty fortunate in that front since Jimmer. Like, I remember when Jimmer went off for that big performance against Arizona in Tucson, and he set the McKell Center record for points scored.
49.
49.
Yes, and I remember the record holder for that before him was like Bob Skousen. I was like, what? I'll admit, I didn't know at the time. Guilty as charged. I didn't know who Bob Skousen was. And I'm thinking, man, like BYU just hasn't had these epic bucket getters, but ever since Jimmer, there's been this run I mean, Ainge would have had some epic scoring performances had there been a 3-point line. But, I think that, it's been pretty cool to see just it's tough to get 30 in a college game. Like, you look at BYU this year. Well, they got 7 guys averaging 9. So balanced. You don't have the one star, but
Who was the closest to 30? Was it Nell against Cincy?
Yeah, so I've got this list. That's a good question. Jackson Robinson has 28. Spencer Johnson has 28.
Oh, yeah. Spencer Johnson's
Nell has
28 was sneaky,
27.
too. That was against Iowa State.
And
Yeah.
Nell, that was, the Cincinnati game. He had all 9 threes.
Yeah.
And then Pope took him out for that 4 or 5 minute stretch, and
Yeah.
That was tough.
really changed the game.
Waterman had 24. Foose had 25. So a lot of guys in the upper 20s, but nobody at 30.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's impressive, too. I mean, BYU and New Mexico this year, the only 2 teams that can say they've had 9 guys score career highs of at least 20 points or more. Pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of guys that on this team can beat you. Like, Richie Saunders goes off for 20, ties a career high against Iowa State earlier this week. So they can come from a lot of different avenues for this BYU team this year.
And there's some notable names on that list, too, that, could have dropped 30. And, like, Jake Toulson is always capable of 30.
He'll be joining us coming up in the hour number 3.
Who else a couple of prolific scorers we're missing? From the Harms, kind of surprised that, no, maybe not, that he didn't do 30.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess you'd assume with his size, like, you're 7'3", you should be able to just lay it in. I think that's always the natural assumption with someone that tall. But
I think Rudy Williams. He
Oh,
had
yeah,
a few
Rudy.
good games against
That's a good
Utah. He
point.
had high 20s. And
that's a good point. I mean, Rudy Williams, he had his flaws. Like, he was a one-year guy. I mean, 4 years, but and then the WCC tournament, I think in the game before they got ousted against St. Mary's, he had a big game against, Santa Clara last year? I can't remember, but there's been some prolific scores at BYU over the years.
Good list, Nate. I guess we'll take a break here. On the other side, we'll get back to some football, and passing game coordinator, wide receiver coach Fesi Satake will join us as well. A lot more to go here on Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSLSports.com. Welcome back in. Cougar Sports Saturday. Always enjoyable, the top 5, especially when you win. Mitch knows that all too well.
Yes. Gosh. It's just a hangover from those Big 12 Eats conversations. Got me so hungry I was distracted.
Earlier in the week, we were down at BYU football practice. I had a chance to catch up with Fesi Satake, talking about his wide receiver group. And Fesi, what's the biggest difference between the wide receivers this year compared to last?
This will be my 7th season. I haven't had this deep of veteranship, leadership in my room. And obviously Cody and Chase are kind of the longest tenured guys, even though, Darius is a senior. But Darius, Keelan, JoJo, Parker, they all played last year. They're all aware of our system. They know the plays. They've gotten into their groove now. And so having 6 guys is huge. And now it's just a matter of keeping them healthy and helping them, improve on their strengths that they already have and any weaknesses they might have.
When you look back at last year, like, what were those strengths and what do you want to see that group improve on this year?
Yeah, I think the strengths was just kind of versatility throughout the whole group. You had size, you had top end speed, you had quickness. I mean, there was a lot of, I feel we covered every skill you could have as a receiver on the spectrum there, but we lacked experience. We know Keelan and Darius came from, they transferred in, but it's hard to come into a system no matter how much you've played football and to just know all the nuances of the offense. And so that's kind of what we lacked. There was just little things that showed up on film as we watched all of last season. There's just little nuances of plays and techniques that I teach and believe in that we're lacking, that we've kind of had in the past. And so those are the little things that I think we'll pick up on this year, and I'm excited to see their growth as a group.
How much does continuity and chemistry from guys playing together for years mean in terms of translating to success on Saturdays?
Huge. It's such. I think everyone understands it in principle, but I don't think if you're not in the everyday life of college football and coaching and as a player, you don't really understand how huge it is. And the more now that the transfer portal's opened up, I think you start to see that more. I mean, just a kind of a tangent, like points per game is at an all-time low. And I understand that they changed clock rules, and it changes about a total number of about 8 plays a game. I think a huge part of lower scoring as well is the fact that there's not the continuity you used to have. That chemistry, the ideal chemistry you're looking for, translates into execution and into points. And so I think that's a huge part of why points are at an all-time low as well. So I think it's massive in terms of your overall success.
And the point of rules, I love that you bring this up because I love following the changes from year to year, but it kind of feels like if this is not going to happen this year, it's soon, that we're going to get rid of signaling plays in, and it's going to be coach to quarterback. What's the likelihood that happens this year, and are you looking forward to that change?
Yeah, it sounds like it's a really high likelihood, and I'm definitely looking forward to it in terms of speeding up the game, not making things as complicated as you have to, avoiding the signal stealing. I think most teams who signal are still going to use it, but for different reasons. It's not to answer every single question of a play, right? So I think from what I know, it sounds like it's going to go through, and I think it's going to be a great benefit.
Is signal stealing, how big of a thing was that in the past? Is that a real challenge that you guys had to work around?
Yeah, it is. It's game by game. I think it's easy. If you get your butt kicked in a game, it's easy to just, blame it on signal stealing. But I also think, you look at last year, and it's been happening. It's a real thing. Teams put time and energy and effort and resources into making sure, they've got people who are able to try and be one step ahead of the game and steal those. And so what it requires is you on the offensive side to be really tight about that. I think it's a real deal. Who doesn't and what games that happened last year, obviously I wouldn't comment on, but there's no doubt I think it's a real thing.
I know you're not a rule maker, and neither am I, but college football, it's a sport that everyone loves so much, and you've been in it for so long, you got to love it as well, to have been in it this long. What other changes would you like to see the game make, whether it's rules or calendar things that you think would make the game healthier from a player and coach perspective?
That's a really good question. That's opening a can of worms, especially as you cover when you go through recruiting, when you go through the transfer portal. I'll say this just so I don't go on a tangent and sound like I'm not grateful to be in this profession, because I am. The number one thing that pops up in my mind is just regulating the transfer portal. That's really all it is. I believe in it. I think there's merit to it. But when it's just a free-for-all, I think it can get a little bit chaotic, and it can hurt more people than not. And so I want to protect the special cases where kids need to transfer, but not at the expense of it being the Wild Wild West. So that's the only thing I would bring up right now. But the list goes on.
Does feel a little bit like the Wild Wild West. Last thing for you, Coach. Appreciate the time. We're very early into spring ball, but what are you trying to accomplish from a wide receiver perspective and also from a pass game perspective here in spring?
Yeah, what we talked about earlier is a huge answer to that. The continuity is going to bring what and I know the rest of the staff would love to accomplish, which is just more efficiency, getting back to the explosive offense. There were a lot of ups and downs last year, and we were limited in many ways, and a big part of that was our group, as the receivers. And so we got to step up and get back to what we used to be, which is huge plays made down the field. Great in our downfield blocking, making a 20-yard run turn into a 70-yard run. Those are just the little things. And then doing that at a consistent level. We had that last year. So I think that continuity, that the leadership we're bringing back, the experience is going to, translate all that. I got to hold the standard high, and the guys are doing a great job already, responding to that.
Thanks for the time. Hope your group stays healthy this spring, man. Important piece of spring football, staying healthy, right?
It is, man. Yep. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Strength of the team, don't you? Offensively, at least, for sure. That wide receiver group.
I think so, but there's still answers that need to come from that wide receiver room. They got to have some guys take steps forward this year from that position group. But yeah, I mean the names and they're guys that have given you many flashes over the last couple of years that they can perform at a high level, and I think that's reason to make you feel a little bit better about this offense heading into this year. But I think you want to see more from Chase Roberts. I think, he's a guy to me that he has to become
go-to number one.
That, and I think he's got to elevate his play to strive to be a first-team All-Big 12 guy. And I think that's someone that's got about 900,000 yards maybe. I mean, that's lofty standard, but, I think that he's got that ability, Chase Roberts. I do believe that, but he's got to take a huge leap in his development. And you wonder if he's got the quarterbacks to be able to get him that level of production. You hope so, because if that happens, then BYU could be a real surprise team this season in the Big 12.
The guy that I'm really curious about this year is Cody Epps. Just last year there was so much drama, so much turmoil. Then he was banged up. Can he give you 80% of what you had 2 years? Because 2 years ago, Mitch, that guy was dynamic. Think about what he was doing against Notre Dame's defense.
Oh, he was great.
Shredding Notre Dame's defense. Like, he had a phenomenal year. He didn't come anywhere close to that last year.
He was awesome against Oklahoma State, though.
Yes.
That final game. And
Oklahoma, he had some flashes, too.
He did. But I think that Oklahoma State game was like, that's the Cody Epps you thought you were going to have in 2023.
And if you get back to that and you have Keelan and Darius, Chase, and then him in the inside doing that.
It's not bad.
That's pretty legit.
And I like what I'm seeing from Darius Laster, too. I feel like there's, he spoke with me earlier this week, and that's also on the podcast feed. He's just like, I feel so much more confident now in this offense. Arriving last spring, you didn't have a full winter conditioning. You didn't have a full spring ball to be with your teammates. I think, myself included, I underestimated how challenging that is, that large of a number that they brought in after spring last season. That was difficult to just bring it all together and say, hey, all right, these guys will work and just mesh so well with Keaton. I think I do like the approach that BYU is taking. Is like, we are going to develop from within. We're not getting these heralded transfer guys, so we're going to develop these guys that we currently got. I'm okay with that. If you're not going to get the big time transfers, we'll make sure to develop the guys you got and get the most out of them.
Let's take a break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way on the other side. Mitch caught up with starting quarterback possibility Jake Retzlaff. We'll have that conversation next.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Hour number 3 of Cougar Sports Saturday is off and running. It's Big 12 basketball is kind of crazy. I mean, that's no new news there. I mean, every game in this league is kind of wild, but I did not see this one coming. Right now in Manhattan, Kansas, K-State is up 60-53 on number 6 Iowa State. So the Cyclones, I mean, they're squarely number 2 in the Big 12 tournament. They're going to probably stay there. Kansas State, though, they win this one. This is a big quad 1 victory for them if they can finish the job. They'd maybe get back into the conversation to give the Big 12 maybe a 10th big NCAA tournament bid. I mean, that's what we're talking about here with the Big 12. So upsets, possibly happening here on the regular season finale Saturday here in the Big 12 play. But let's get back to BYU football. I caught up with BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff and this quarterback battle and how the quarterbacks have looked so far as they continue that quarterback battle with Gary Bohannon.
Jake, the quarterback battle, I think everyone's talking about it on the outside. What's the intensity of this quarterback battle, if at all, between you and Gary right now?
I honestly wouldn't say there's any rival intensity. Like, me and Gary get along really well, and we have a lot of fun together. We feed off each other's energy and stuff like that. So, we're not worried about being enemies. You know what I mean? Off the field, it's just like you go do your thing, I go do mine when I'm in, and so it's not hard to be cool with the guy when you're not actually right in front of him every play. It's just like you're in, then he's in. So, no, it's great. It's a love push competition. It makes everybody better.
So it's got to be a lot of fun then, the relationship between you guys.
Yeah. Me and Gary have a lot of fun. It's great.
What's the objectives that you're looking to achieve personally and as a team on the offensive side for this team in these 15 practices?
Just develop as an offense. Honestly, I talked to some of the guys, and we feel like we're miles ahead of where we were last year at this point. And so, just keep developing on the nuances and stuff, getting with those guys, and especially the guys that have been in the offense, getting that cohesion together, getting that thing. So I'm excited for it. I think we got a lot of promise coming into this spring.
am I off, Jake? And coming out of that game at Stillwater, I was there in Oklahoma State. That was a high emotion game how it finished, and it just felt like there was that outcome. I mean, it was tough in the moment, but in a way, it felt like it brought a lot of guys back to where there's like this urgency and momentum that maybe hasn't been here in years past. Am I off? Like, does it feel like there's kind of this? How the season ended last year is really kind of motivating guys right now.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, the way we finished those last two games, even I'd throw Oklahoma in Lavelle in there also, because like we went and competed against the best in the nation. One team went on to the Big 12 championship. The other team was the next bid in the Big 12 championship. So yeah, I mean, we got the confidence to go do it. Our offense started figuring things out towards the end of the year, and we started rolling a little bit. And to be honest, like we've picked up right where we left off last season, and so like we're super excited. We're ready to go. We understand what this offense can do. Even though we didn't do it last year, we were starting to do it, and we're starting to get that mojo together, and the guys really believe in it. I'll tell you what, the guys really believe in what we can do because we did it against the best at the end of last year.
And how much confidence do you have in this playbook and what Aaron Roderick expects for you? He just noted with us that you're kind of like a new guy, like you're taking a step forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I was a new guy a year ago, and it was like warming up to the offense and figuring things out. It was the first time I took a real snap under center. I was in gun and JUCO in high school, and so, yeah, no, it's the maturing into the offense is a real thing, and it's awesome. It's going out there with a different mindset now. It's like I've banked all these reps, and I know how most plays turn out versus what coverages and stuff like that, so I know what to expect. So it's just super exciting to go out there with every opportunity. It's a new opportunity, and I just treat it like that, and it's awesome. This offense can flourish.
You noted last week that you were putting some work with John Beck. How did that come to be? Was that something that you were doing last year, or did that kind of materialize this past winter?
Yeah, so obviously when I came to BYU, the connection was made pretty quickly. You know what I mean? He's out of Huntington Beach. He's out of Golden West College, and I went there my first JUCO. So, like, I'd seen those guys throw on the field. I'd actually thrown with them one time. I didn't know who John Beck was at the time. I was throwing with one of the other coaches, but it was easy to make that. It was last summer I went out there and really had my first, mini camp with John, and Keaton was out there with me, so that was cool. And then right after the season, it was the first thing. I'm like, I'm home. What else should I be doing other than being with John at Echo of the West? And it's sunny Southern California, so you don't got to worry about weather. And so, John's great. I mean, the guy's a pro, and his IQ for every little thing about the game, little thing about quarterback is so high that I just feed off of that, and I just be asking questions left and right just to get some information, and because that guy's got some knowledge of the game, and he's helped me out in an incredible amount.
How much has it helped with executing on offense in spring ball to have wide receivers like Chase Roberts, Darius Laster back, Cody Epps, a lot of options, and Keelan Marion, pretty much everyone's back.
Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest things as well. Those guys, like Keelan and Darius, didn't come in until fall camp last year, you know what I mean? So, that is just so big to have already the bank reps, plus now it's spring, now we get to try new things, now we get to see what he does in these different situations. It's awesome, and I love it, and so we're just taking advantage of every rep.
Has life been a little, has life been a little bit different for you, being now more recognized? Because you noted you were here last year in January, probably kind of a new face that not many people knew, but now you've had 4 starts. You've been part of this program, and you're vying to be the face of the program. I mean, is it a little bit different around town now?
I go to a basketball game. I went to the TCU game where our basketball team put on a heck of a show when they came back in that second half. And, we're walking out of the building. You get guys who are just like, what up, Jake? How you doing? And so it's cool to get that. And I'm just giving a go Cougs right back to them. And it's pretty awesome to see that kind of support and the recognition. It's like I got a helmet on and they're still recognizing me at a basketball game. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. It's cool to get embraced by this community.
Well, Jake, best of luck in this battle in spring and throughout this offseason. Looking forward to following it every step of the way.
Appreciate you.
Good to have a quick check-in with Jake Retzlaff, fellow Laker fan. Always got to throw that in about
that was
Jake.
a nice win last night, too.
That was a good win for the Lake Show, and we'll see if Jake can get a win in the quarterback race. I feel like he's the favorite, but, hey, we'll see how it all plays out.
How do you think it will play out?
Well, I think you're not going to name anyone until maybe snap number 1 against Southern Illinois, because this year, if you're Kalani and Roderick, you do not, under any circumstances, name a starter at the end of spring. Because say you named Gary Bohannon the starter at the end of spring. What does Jake Retzlaff do?
Gone.
Leaving. I'm in the portal. There's no incentive to name anything. You want to maintain those numbers? Now, maybe you do have a few guys bounce. He got 10 quarterbacks. You're not going to have all of them. This is not the 80s when Steve Young's quarterback 8. They're just not going to stay, forever. But I think it's going to be one of those, you're going to see it snap 1 against Southern Illinois. And I'm okay with that. That's fine. In other years when it was Jaron Hall and you're coming back from COVID, I thought that was a really momentum builder for the fans. Like, hey, you're back. Here's your quarterback. Rally around this guy. This year, I don't think it's one of those things where you need to keep it proprietary against the Salukis, but it's like you might need every single snap building up to that game to really say, okay, this is our guy.
The thing that will be so interesting, we've watched Jake Rutzoff now for 2 springs and a fall and 4 games of football. Jake is not a great practice quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just, and it
should be added, that's not a bad thing. Taysom Hill, not a great practice quarterback.
I was just going to say, he clearly can take it to another level when the lights are on and does things that you can't simulate in practice. And I think for those reasons, he'll be the starting quarterback when it's all said and done. But it does make it hard in a practice setting to feel like, oh, yeah, he's taking a lead. Like, we're there when we're allowed to be. And I haven't noticed anything out of the ordinary. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be better.
And
he could be better, but it's just hard to see in practice.
And that could be by design. Aaron Roderick probably doesn't want to reveal much to us. That's fine. But there hasn't been just even with an intermediate throw where you go, whoa. Like, you can see some like the velocity, the spin.
Because we felt that way with Jaron and with Keaton.
And it's not a shock. I mean, he still got a chance to go to the combine, and he did a great job at the combine. We might be talking about Keaton Slovis being a 6th, 7th round pick.
Right.
And look, and if any, we've watched a lot of BYU football in our time, covering this team since we started in 2019 together. Think about the quarterbacks we have watched. We know what an NFL quarterback looks like. I feel pretty good. You and I, we've seen NFL QBs at BYU and got 3 consecutive starting quarterbacks of professional quarterbacks and how they throw the ball. So far, through 2 weeks of practice, I'm not seeing any signs of that level of throws in a practice setting. And that gets a little bit worrisome when you're going into a schedule that, look, it's going to have 11 games that could be at a minimum 50-50, or you could be the underdog. That's what it is this year.
Yep.
And it's a tall task. I saw Dennis Dodd's CBS Sports Spring Top 25. 6 of BYU's 2024 opponents are on his top 25, one of which is a non-conference team, SMU, number 19.
Jeez.
SMU loaded up in the portal, and they were an 11-win team last year. We forget that, but that was a very good SMU team, and they've got a sense of urgency now that they're in the ACC, and they're throwing the money like crazy with those boosters.
Jeez.
So, buckle up.
Who knows if this will remain true with SMU and other teams in that top 25, but why did we schedule them?
I mean, BYU needed a game, SMU needed games, but SMU needed more inventory than BYU. I would have said, okay, let's do the home and home, but you're coming to Provo first.
Right.
You needed more than us. Like, BYU, I'm sure could have said, there could have been some strings pulled with the Big 12.
Look, this team, like what BYU did last year, I don't hate now that you're a power team. Now, for the fans, it's not great not to have sexy matchups early, but why don't you just have somebody come into town?
I completely agree. They should have just got a Conference USA team. It's an FBS squad.
An independent team.
Hey, this new Kennesaw State, step on in. Here's $2 million to come get thumped 14-0. But you're going to walk away with an L. And BYU's going to be 2-0.
Right.
And you got 4 more wins that you need to get to the postseason.
And whoever is the starting quarterback may have benefited from that more because you just get a couple games under your belt.
And then the Wyoming game in week 3, we'll break down the schedule throughout the whole summer, but that's a game where BYU should win that. Like I kind of early look at Wyoming's roster. BYU's got better personnel, but it's the whole Liberty thing. You know, like when Hugh Freeze said, gentlemen, you're about to play the biggest game this school's ever played. That's what it's going to be for Wyoming.
Yep.
You know they're going to buy into the storylines. Barrelman's going to probably do a pregame speech. He's going to be like, guys,
please.
Ty Detmer crushed me so many years. Do not let this team take you down. You should hate everything about BYU. That's what it'll be for Wyoming. And that's where, again, like what was going on with some of the thought process behind some of this non-conference scheduling. So, it was not wise when you are not a team that has a clear sense of identity on either side of the ball in the Big 12 right now. So it's going to be a tough year for BYU. But look, there's a lot of opportunity, and how awesome would it be if they surprise us all? But to get to 6 wins will be quite the accomplishment for this team.
Let's take a break. We'll switch gears back to hoops, preview the Oklahoma State game, and about 10 minutes from now, we'll have former BYU Cougar guard Jake Toolson. He'll talk about the team and preview the matchup with us as well. A lot more to go here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Let's get back to hoops. BYU and Oklahoma State tonight, 7 p.m. sellout in Provo. Final regular season game for BYU. It's a payback game. That's the word Spencer Johnson used with the media earlier in the week after they lost by 10 on the road in Stillwater. We'll preview this one with the three-pointer, and then in our next segment, Jake Toolson. He'll join the program to get things going. Pregame will start at 6 p.m. here on KSL News Radio. I'll start things off in the three-pointer, Mitch. This is where we give you a key stat, some players to watch, a bold prediction as we get into the weeds a little bit in the matchup of the night for BYU basketball. Here's my key stat. 3. That represents BYU's national ranking in made three-pointers per game. They're a tick above 11 made threes a game. The reason I bring that up is they lost this category against Oklahoma State in the loss. It was Oklahoma State who made 11 threes. It was a -9 differential for BYU. That can't happen again tonight. BYU has to make more threes than Oklahoma State.
I like that you bring up three-pointers because I'm going to now go inside the arc with my stat. 8th. BYU, I didn't realize this, 8th nationally in two-point percentage this season, 58.1% from the field in that area. BYU has just been highly efficient in that part of the court, and because everyone talks about the threes with this team, and I do believe that in a tournament setting, BYU better be knocking down at least 10 threes, in my humble opinion. But because of how they have to be accounted for at all times, especially when Khalifa's out there, it opened things up in the post and in the paint for BYU in the mid-range game. So BYU 8th nationally in two-point percentage this season.
Let's get now to some players to watch. For Oklahoma State, it's the freshman, is it Jamiron Keller? Jamiron? Jamiron, there you go.
Jamiron Keller.
Jamiron Keller lit up BYU, over 20 points in that win. I want to see just how BYU defends him and how he follows it up. I know, look, he's a freshman, so it's been up and down for him this year, but he had his best game of the season against BYU. Can they contain him? And for BYU, we talked about this earlier, how does Dallin Hall bounce back? Was so good in the previous week against Kansas and TCU. Not so good in the loss earlier in the week against Iowa State. Had those 3 turnovers, only 3 assists. Can he bounce back and get back to being a high assist-to-turnover ratio guy like he's been in a lot of BYU's wins?
For me, on Oklahoma State, it's 6'11" center freshman Brandon Garrison against BYU in the first meeting. Like Keller, he had a career high, 21 points against BYU. I'm curious to see how he gets defended going forward. Since that game against BYU, he's on a streak of 4 consecutive games in single digits, nowhere near the level of production he had against the Cougars. He's a McDonald's All-American. He's going to be a future NBA big. He is legit. But I just think this BYU, I think the second go-round with a young freshman, this is where being a little bit more veteran of a team that BYU is, you would hope has an impact on shutting him down this second go-round. So Brandon Garrison's a guy for me to watch for Oklahoma State. For BYU, I'm curious to see Foose. We talked a lot about Dallin Hall. He had those 2 turnovers late. Foose also had a turnover too.
The travel.
And I think, I'm curious to see how BYU utilizes Foose this go-round. It did feel like there were stretches in that game against Iowa State where maybe Foose was in there a little bit too long because the offense kind of stalled with Foose a bit. They needed that 5 guys on the court that could knock down a 3 with Khalifa, but at the same time, defensively, he was doing an outstanding job. It was kind of a rock fight game for a little bit there. So kind of curious to see how maybe Pope adjusts this game with the minutes with Khalifa and Foose. But, those two have been a great 1-2 punch for BYU, however they're used. But I thought that was one game where it did stand out. Maybe you needed Khalifa a little bit more in that one.
Let's get to a bold prediction. Mine is on the lines of Jackson Robinson. This is what Coach Pope had to say earlier in the week about his NBA potential.
Well, if he's a first-round draft pick, he's got to go. And, who knows what that means. I mean, we'll find that out a lot more. And then short of that, then it's just fun recruiting, and it's really helping him. It's going to be helping him explore where his heart is.
I think he's going to go. I think he'll be on the fringe of a first-round draft pick. And taking cue from our producer's top 5, my bold prediction will be that Jackson Robinson, in his final game in the Marriott Center, scores 30 points.
Okay, I like that. That's a good pick. Jackson Robinson will be one of 3 players tonight honored on senior night, joining Spencer Johnson and Traden Christensen. You know what? I'll keep up with the senior night theme. I'll say Spencer Johnson goes for 5 points at least, 5 rebounds, 5 assists.
5 steals?
Maybe 5 steals. Let's go 5 by 4. Is that what that would be? So I'll say at least 5, 5, 5, 5 for Spencer Johnson on a senior night because he's that type of guy he's got the ability to fill up the stat sheet.
All right, we got to get to a break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way. On the other side, BYU Cougar, former BYU Cougar, and, he's a Boston Celtic guy, which that kind of gets into my skin a little. No, I'm kidding. Jake Toolson joins us next to break down this BYU Hoops team.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for 3. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. Talking a lot of football and a lot of basketball. The Cougs playing their final regular season game later tonight in the Marriott Center as they host Oklahoma State. And to break that game down and talk some BYU hoops with us is a former BYU Cougar himself, Jake Toolson. Jake, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, man.
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's good to see you guys, and I'm excited to talk some hoops today.
Honestly, having you on and seeing you here makes me a little sad that we never got to see you in the tournament. I remember interviewing you when you played there, and that felt like a team that was going to make some noise, and I still can't believe that never happened for you guys.
I know, you and me both. It's fun to look back and see, the run that we went on, the season we had, but, now it's up to the future teams to live vicariously through and see what their tournament experience can be like.
Jake, it feels like yesterday that you were at BYU in that first year with Mark Pope, but yet at the same time, so much has changed in college sports since that season. Do you kind of just marvel at, wow, 4 years, the sport has radically changed. There's NIL, BYU's in the Big 12. Do you just kind of go, man, a lot has changed in these last couple of years?
Yeah, it kind of like it's a whole different landscape now where they're dealing with things that I never even thought about as a player. And I know that, BYU has done a pretty good job, in my opinion, positioning themselves for success in the Big 12, the new NIL era. There's a lot of questions and still, but, it seems like they've figured it out. And there's still a lot of learning on the fly and things change a lot, but they've navigated it pretty well, in my opinion.
Joe Lenardi, the bracketology guy, has BYU as a 5 seed right now. I don't think any BYU fan saw BYU being a 5 seed their first year in the Big 12. Why do you think this team has exceeded everyone's expectations up to this point?
That's a good question. And honestly, if I'm sitting here being honest, I wouldn't have predicted that either preseason, but it's just a credit to Coach Pope and his program, the type of guys that he has, that locker room. I mean, we've talked about how, Coach Pope puts a lot of emphasis on that locker room. And the guys have just bought in. And I think there was what were the expectations going into the year? I think it was, okay, it's the Big 12. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period, maybe, some growing pains and all this, but they never bought into any of that. They're like, okay, There's no expectations. Let's go out there and just kind of blaze our own trail and see what we're made of. And so it's a different dynamic in the Big 12. You know, the game the other night, it's not must win or our resume is ruined. It's just, hey, this is an opportunity to learn about ourselves going into March. So it's a completely different game they're playing in the Big 12, and they've figured it out every step of the way.
What is it about Coach Pope that gets so much out of players and molds personalities together to really kind of buy into something greater than oneself?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Pope won a national championship in college. Like, he's played at the highest level. It's not like he's making any of this stuff up. He knows what good teams need to do, and he can teach his players, his staff. They all have that same mentality, and I think he does a great job of relating to players, giving them a ton of confidence, giving them so much freedom to be themselves, but also at the same time putting them in positions to succeed, and giving them the opportunity to make mistakes and to grow and to become better. He has that, growth mindset that it takes to be successful in this world.
I won't lie, Jake. I was a little concerned at the Iowa State loss. Just look, I was impressed that they competed, but at the end of the game, so many turnovers, not getting good shots, and that has been a consistent theme in some of their losses, unable to get the offense going.
Yeah.
Do I need to be concerned about that going into the tournament? Because I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of blowouts. There's a lot of close games ahead. Do I need to be concerned about their late game execution?
I wouldn't say you need to be concerned, but don't be surprised when that's what it comes down to in the tournament, because it's always going to come down to executing late in the game. Every team has earned a chance to be there in March. Everyone's punched their ticket. There's no bad teams. So it's going to come down to that late game execution. And I think Iowa State, we were the better team for the majority of the night. And it stings knowing that, we execute a little bit better on a couple possessions, take care of the ball, get a shot at least, get to the free throw line or something. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to come down to that in the Big 12 tournament in March, in the NCAA tournament. And what a great opportunity it was for that team to go through that late in the season and then learn from it. It's you can learn from victory. You can learn from things going really well. You can still learn from it, but you can, in my opinion, you can learn a lot more from adversity and from failure than you can from that. And I know that, whoever's pointing the finger at whoever, those people are going to answer the bell. Dallin's going to be, better for it. And I think that's just what's going to sharpen us to be playing our best ball in March.
Talking with former BYU basketball star Jake Toolson here on KSL News Radio. Your team at BYU under Coach Mark Pope was number 1 in three-point shooting in college basketball. This team is kind of connected to the three-point shot in terms of national narrative, but it feels like there's a lot of differences in terms of the style and the offense. Am I off on that, Jake? Like, what do you feel are some of the biggest differences between your team stylistically, offensively, and compared to this year's squad?
Yeah. Well, there's a few key differences. I mean, personnel is always changing. So I think Coach Pope does a really good job. And Coach Fieger deserves a ton of credit too for understanding what personnel they have and how they can put those guys in position to succeed. I can't lie. I sit here and watch this year's team and see how well they play together and wish we could have ran some more of that action, those zooms, those away screens, those pin downs, the dribble handoffs with playing with Ali and finding all the late cutters and wide open threes. Like, in my opinion, that's the greatest way to play basketball. But the difference is personnel. We had a guy like Yoli that's 20 and 10 on any given night. We wanted to give him as many opportunities to, be impactful. And then TJ, is so dynamic and he can make so many plays with the ball in his hands. And then, myself and Barcelo and Zach and Dalt and, we had a unique group. And I think Coach Pope did a good job managing that. But in his first year, he kind of had us on a little bit more of a leash in terms of he was heavy play calling. We were calling a set almost every time down the floor. And this year, it's just all about freedom. These guys are playing, they're making reads in real time. Obviously, after a timeout or side out of bounds or underneath out of bounds, coach is drawing something up. But for the most part, they're playing, and they've done a great job of teaching them what reads to make, how to cut, how to finish your cuts. It's a nightmare for these opposing teams to try and guard this, and it's fun to watch as a fan.
Which player has had the most surprising success in your eyes this year? Someone that maybe you didn't have much expectation for that's just exceeded what you thought they could do this season?
Yeah, I think every player has earned their role on the team, and I think everyone has played at a high level. I didn't know much about Ali coming into the year. He came from the portal and wasn't healthy all summer. We were there last summer playing pickup, and I didn't get to see him at all. So Ali is so fun to watch. He's so smart, and he's really gives us the ability to play the way that we do because of how smart he is and how creative he is with the ball. I think Richie Saunders has taken a huge step. Like, this guy, plays so hard. He's all over the place. He impacts winning in every category. Richie has definitely been someone I've had fun watching this year. And then Dallin, I think too, has taken that step. I love seeing the progress from his freshman year to this year, and leading this team into the Big 12. And that doesn't mean that everyone else hasn't made a great impression, but those three in particular have really stood out.
Dallin had that iconic shot over Hunter Dickinson in Lawrence to help BYU get that win in Fog Allen. Now, I got to ask, Jake, which win's bigger? BYU taking down Kansas or your team beating number 2 Gonzaga, which was a heck of a Gonzaga team? And you guys not only won, but you pretty much handled them and pulled away. Which one's bigger? You're a BYU guy, but you're on that BYU team in 2020.
Yeah, I'm going to let the fans decide that one. Both were just amazing games. I think the context leading up to the Gonzaga game, where it's kind of the last go around for that group, a lot of seniors, senior night, and then kind of in hindsight, what happened after that now kind of makes it more special to me, just because that was one of our last chances to lace them up together. And beating a really good team. So I think that's my answer. But going on the road to Lawrence, Fog Allen, and beating a team like that in the way that we did, when Coach Pope got teed up, I was like, this is either going to go one of two ways. The wheels are going to fall off and we're going to lose by 10 plus, or we're going to come back and win this game. And I think that was a very calculated move by Pope to just give his guys a little bit more juice to go, fight for that win. And it was awesome to watch.
A few more moments here with Jake Toolson. What do you think this team needs to do to win some games in the NCAA tournament? If you had to pick one or two aspects of the game, what do they have to do well to get a couple tournament wins?
I think, the regular season is a great opportunity to learn about your team. We've faced a lot of different situations. We've had to come back, from double-digit deficits like TCU. We've been on the road at Texas Tech and blew a lead, and the one with Iowa State, and we've been through a lot of different situations, and we've learned and we've grown. And I think in March, it's going to come down to, rebounding, playing defense, executing. But I think we need to just be who we are. A lot of times it depends on matchups and seeding and, where you're playing the game. But all that stuff, it really just comes down to, can we be who we are and do the things that we do best? Obviously, taking care of the ball and rebounding are going to be the number 1 and 2 most important things to Coach Pope and his staff. But making shots, having that confidence, having that mojo, I think Iowa State, as hurtful as it was to kind of let that one slip away, I hope that the team has just unlimited swagger and confidence right now, knowing that they can beat anyone in the country. They were on the road against a top 5 team that's undefeated at home, and a couple of just, mental and execution errors, and we're there. So we should have that confidence. And I think just letting it all out on the court, I like our chances against anyone.
It's going to be a fun few weeks ahead, and it was a pleasure talking with you, Jake. And just kind of get Cougar fans up to speed, how life's been treating you. You've had the professional basketball overseas. Just maybe how Cougar fans can support you in anything you're doing right now.
Yeah. So, after college, played for a couple years, dealt with a few injuries, and my family was growing, and we were living in Germany, and really wanted to just have no regrets. And, it was my dream my whole life to, play professional basketball. And I had so many amazing opportunities to do that, see so many cool places, travel the world. And I think at this point in my life, it just kind of made sense to move on. I'm lucky that I got to experience that. And the thing that I wanted most about it was just, I wanted to give everything I had to the game. I wanted to empty the tank, and, I was able to do that. And there's always a time and a place to move on. And, my family means a lot to me, and I wanted to put us all in a position that we could be growing and thriving. And, so that's where I'm at. We live here in Utah. We're in Vineyard.
Hey, shout out Vineyard. Let's go.
Come on now. Yeah. So, life is good, and I'm really enjoying this phase of my life where I can just be a fan. Coach Pope does a great job of making sure that I'm good. Anything that I need, he's always checking in on me. It's fun to go to the games, to be close to the program. And I'm looking forward to this run in March just about as much as anyone is. So, life is good.
Hey, well, if we get the Salt Lake seed line, we'll have to have you in studio or in arena doing some previews or something, because it's like you said, it's going to be a fun ride with this team.
Absolutely.
All right, there you go, Jake Toolson. Good stuff. We'll take the break, and we'll have more BYU basketball coming your way after this. Welcome back in. Final segment of the show. Good stuff from Jake Toolson. Good to hear from him. It was, I really enjoyed the conversation, but it was weird. It felt like he had played so long ago.
Yes.
And yet he played for the guy who's still coaching BYU.
And one of his teammates is still on this year's team. Trevin Nell. How about that?
Trevin Nell's been here 4 years? 5?
Well, what's crazy is he's committed to Dave Rose. He flipped from Cal and Quanzo Martin. He was part of that talented Cal recruiting class. He flips to BYU, and I think that was 2017 out of Woods Cross. Then he goes on the mission, and he plays for Mark Pope in 2019-20. Sophomore year, had that big WCC tournament game where he knocked down, 6 threes against the number 1 Zags, and then shoulder issues, and he's had a really good year this year. It's been a little bit up and down in Big 12 play, but hopefully Trevin can hit his stride and do a solid for that 2020 team that just never got the chance to play in March.
You think he'll add another dog to the family before his career is over at BYU? Because he's coming back. He's not being honored.
He needs to. It was interesting. He in that interview a couple weeks ago with us, he said, we'll see if I come back. I was like, should we be monitoring this situation? But now that he's not getting honored on senior night tonight, I got to imagine he's
Can I just say, too, in the case of Noah and Trevin, tip of the cap to those guys. Leave it with NIL being a thing. There's no reason to exhaust eligibility unless what Coach Pope said is true. And I totally agree with Coach Pope earlier in the week when he said if Jackson Robinson's a first-round guy, he's got to go. Yep. 100%, especially in college basketball where there's not as many rounds. It's much harder to break in. If you're a first-round guy, you go. If not, use every single year of eligibility. Do the Alex Barcelo, exhaust it all I love that Nell and Waterman are doing that.
Well, and you hope, too, that with Waterman coming back, you hope that there's maybe some already assurances being made for next year from the NIL perspective. Mark Pope has been very vocal. 40% of his job is tied to fundraising for NIL.
Yep.
You hope that the fundraising efforts has already been locked in for next year.
You would assume that that's the case, considering how great this season has been. The fan support has been off the charts. You got off to a slow start in Big 12 play where I'm like, hey, where's everyone? And then, now you got sellouts against a TCU team that was unranked. You got a sellout tonight against Oklahoma State. It's a payback game. We talked about this earlier in the show, but you just feel like there's no way this is close, huh?
I feel like BYU is going to really kind of make a statement tonight and get some revenge. I mean, you heard from Noah Waterman, Spencer Johnson. These guys want this game bad. And look, you're facing a 12-win team. You would think, what's really at stake? You're probably going to be the 6th seed in the Big 12 tournament at worst. Really, this is one of those games where it's like, who cares? But the thing is, quad 3 game, too. If you did lose, it could hurt you on the seed line in the NCAA tournament, and that matters way more. And if you had a dominant win, like I said earlier, getting margin of victory, it's not the only component, but, man, it's big. If you can thump a top 100 team, that will help your metrics and get a nice little extra push before March. That doesn't hurt the effort. So I think BYU wins big. I'm going to say BYU 88, Oklahoma State 69.
Oh, man, that is a big win. I think BYU wins comfortably. I'm not going to go quite that big. I'll go BYU 90, Oklahoma State 79. Still a little concerns defensively. That second half against Iowa State, that was a step back defensively from what they had shown against TCU and Kansas in second half defensive efforts of note. But, hey, you get back in the win before you get to tournament play. I think that's a really important thing.
And I think also part of my prediction, too, is I felt like Oklahoma State, they've been a broken team since they lost that Bedlam game at the buzzer. They were surging. They beat BYU, beat Cincinnati, and they were knocking on the doorstep. They were up 11 on Oklahoma at home, and you're thinking, man, this Oklahoma State team is going to be hot going into Oklahoma or going into Kansas City. But then they lost at the buzzer to their rival in the final Bedlam game. Ever since, they've lost every game. And they seem like a team that was checked out against Texas Tech watching that game. The Red Raiders just got up big on them, and it was a half-empty gym. It just felt like, Mike Boynton's job's kind of on the hot seat right now for Oklahoma State, so you wonder, is he coming back? There's been some arguing on social media with their NIL collective saying, this man doesn't represent us in this basketball program. There's a lot of drama going on with Oklahoma State. I just feel like they're getting to the point where we want this season to be done. You're coming out west to Provo, altitude. I know you're hearing that thing, and why is Mitch bringing up altitude? We know that, but it does factor in. I just think that BYU wins big. I just think there's a lot of factors going against Oklahoma State.
I do think, though, for BYU, that this isn't a game where you can't show up. You still have to play well, and hey, there's still a chance for a 4 seed if you win this and you win 1 or 2 games in the Big. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but you got to take care of business tonight.
And this guard line for Oklahoma State crushed BYU in that last game. So big game tonight. I think BYU gets it done. We'll have the coverage here on KSL. Tip off at 7 o'clock. Pregame at 6. Greg Wrubell, Mark Durant will be courtside inside the Marriott Center. Matt and I will be at the Marriott Center as well with coverage on KSLSports.com. We'll talk to you Monday night from Kansas City on Cougar Nation, 6 p.m. Make sure to blow up the phone lines and share your Big 12 tournament predictions Monday night here on KSL News Radio.